bring this introduce this story real quick. Dan McCrory spoke with Phil Cohen, who made a living in the '80s taking on union busting lawyers in the South and winning, and talking about his experience, talking
And
about
this
his
is Dan
experiences.
McCrory for Working Voices, and I'm talking to Phil Cohen, who is a longtime organizer with some special tricks up his sleeve that he's about to bear to us. And we'll start with asking you, Phil, how you first became a union organizer.
I come from a rough working class background. You might say everything that gives New York City a bad name. I've been on my own since I was 16. And basically, I was never 16. I was 18 for 3 years in a row because I had to work for a living. And I did blue collar work for 20 years. I ended up leaving New York, where I'd been a New York City taxi driver in the 1970s. And I became a bus driver in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And it had a union local under the ATU International, but they didn't do a damn thing for them. And I was at a point where there was a management meeting with employees instituting some new rules and regulations. And I was just seeing the downtrodden looks on people's faces. You know, my experience the first couple of years I'd been at the bus garage was just becoming close with a lot of people and then slowly, systematically just seeing the lights go out of their eyes. And I had this really strong feeling someone's got to do something about this. And I started looking around the room to see if I could intuit who that person might be so I could later go up to them and try to convince them to have some involvement in trying to change the situation. And eventually my gaze turned inward and I realized that person was me. And I got myself elected chief steward of the union local. And in 1988, I was hired as a lead organizer and troubleshooter by what was then the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union and is currently Workers United and has become an affiliate of SEIU.
So let's talk about Jackson.
Okay. Jackson, Tennessee, that is the part of Tennessee where those who've been around long enough that they saw the first Walking Tall movie, not the hyped up version they've made with The Rock in it, but the original story.
Buford Pusser.
Yeah, Buford Pusser, that's right. Everybody in the Jackson area had personal memories of Buford Pusser. And that part of Tennessee, at least back then, we're talking 1989, was as violent and as corrupt as the movie portrayed it, and then some. There were actually a lot of unions there, but it had a long, bloody history of labor disputes. Virtually every labor dispute that happened there turned bloody. A number of people had been killed, including a business agent from my union.
Wow.
And this local was down to 30%. And I was sent in to do an internal rebuild. Astonishingly, and this is one for the Ripley's Book of World Records, within 8 months, it changed owners 3 times. And each owner was more anti-union than the one before. And different tactics were applicable to each of the different owners and their strategies to marginalize the union. But the third owner was United Foods, a truly vicious, corrupt company that their MO was taking over distressed factories in different industries, and if there was a union, busting the union. And the word on the street was that these guys had ties to the Dixie Mafia. I have no direct evidence of that, but that was the word on the street. My experience has shown me that word on the street generally has some underlying truth behind it. And it turned into an extremely vicious fight. One of the things that I did was I built an alliance with the Teamsters, because most Teamsters locals have a section in their contract saying they are not required to cross picket lines. And so we ran an informational picket constantly in front of that plant, turning 2/3 of the trucks away. The scene was so ugly that when the plant before this happened had increased their workforce by about 1/3. They brought in about 150 workers, almost all of them white, from a textile mill that had just shut in one of the most anti-union towns in Alabama. Can't think of the name offhand. They, of course, came in being viciously opposed to the union. Every time a meeting would adjourn and I'd be leaving the union hall, the president of the local would make everybody stand around me in a horseshoe until I was able to back my car out and go back to the house I was renting in Jackson. And I was sleeping with a loaded 38 draped over my bedpost. And I am not paranoid, but I know the street. I've had to defend myself against deadly force on a number of occasions. I understand the potential for violence, and suffice it to say, I was in an extremely vigilant state of awareness for a good number of months.
Again, Phil, thank you for your time. We've been talking to Phil Cohen, and I wish you the best, and I hope you never retire.
Thank you, Dan. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Same here.
That's a great story.